this video, I'm going to be giving you a full review of my time on board Marella Explorer, where I spent 7 nights visiting Greece, Croatia, Slovenia and Montenegro. I'll be giving my opinions on the dining venues, all-inclusive drinks package, the ship, entertainment, Wi-Fi and much more, including some ship tips at the end, so stay tuned for that. I will say I won't be talking about the ports or excursions, as I do have a dedicated vlog for each of the ports that we visited, so if you want some more information on those, make sure you check them out afterwards. But before we start, hello, I'm Lucy and welcome to my channel. I love everything to do with cruises, Disney and pretty much anything travel related. And just a little disclaimer that everything that I'm about to say is my own opinion. I'm just going to comment on my own experience. They may differ from yours or other people's, but I can only comment on what I've seen and experienced myself. Let's start this review off with most people's favourite thing about a cruise, which is the food. Marella Explorer has 10 different dining options on board. 6 of these are included in the cruise fare, so let's start with these first. Latitude 53 is the main dining room on board Marella Explorer, where you can eat breakfast, lunch and dinner. This is a light, bright and modern waiter service restaurant which spans across decks 5 and 6. There are no set dining times like you can find with other cruise lines, and it is essentially an anytime dining system. You walk up to the desk at the front of the restaurant and are either seated or given a pager and can wait in a nearby lounge. We visited here on Dress to Impress night and found a good selection on the menu, and there were vegan, vegetarian and gluten-free options. We absolutely loved the food in here. It was hot, it was tasty, and if you couldn't decide what to order, you can actually order more than one thing off the menu. So for our starters, we did decide to share one dish and have our own one as well. The service was incredible, with really friendly staff which ran throughout the ship, and they kept our drinks topped up, but I'll talk about the drinks more a little bit later. We would have been more than happy coming here every single night for our dinner, but for me to give a better review of this ship, we decided to try as many dining options as possible. The next restaurant included in the cruise fare is Vista, which is located in a small section of the main dining room on deck 5. This restaurant is dinner only, and like the main dining room, is a waiter service restaurant. Vista is an Italian themed restaurant where you can expect to find those classic dishes such as bolognese, bruschetta, lasagna, tiramisu and more. And you'll also be able to try some Italian wines here. Italian being my favourite cuisine, and like Latitude 53, I would have been happy to come here more than once. Again, the food and service was perfect. The dessert wasn't quite to my taste, but that was just personal preference. The next included restaurant or restaurants is a two-parter. The Mediterranean is split into 2 sections but in the same area. First is Tapas at the Mediterranean, which is open for lunch and dinner. The menu at lunch is a condensed version of the full menu which you can find at dinner. We didn't get a chance to eat in here as it was too busy, but the menu looks great and I recommend booking a table in advance. The other part of the Mediterranean is the Italian, also open for lunch and dinner, and we ate in here for dinner on the first day. Like the tapas restaurant, the lunch menu is a condensed version of the one at dinner. Instead of being given a traditional menu, we were given sheets of paper to tick the items we wanted with an IKEA pencil. We could mix and match and select the type of pasta and sauce, order a calzone, choose a pizza or create our own. Like the other venues, the service in here was very quick and friendly. We were given bread and salad to start, and our mains arrived shortly after. Everything tasted amazing, although my pasta and sauce was a little colder in temperature than expected. Overall, we really enjoyed our meal here and would be more than happy to eat here again. The next included venue is the Snack Shack, which is a poolside grill which offers hot and cold, grab and go type foods. There is an open fridge where you can help yourself to ready-made salads, sandwiches and fruit pots. There is also a hot section which serves foods such as burgers, fish, chicken and fries, and there is also a side area for desserts. We absolutely loved it here for a quick bite, and it was perfect if you were spending the day around the pool, as you can still be served here in your swimwear. We ate here more than once, so clearly it was a thumbs up from us. The Marketplace is the venue on board which serves breakfast, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner and late night snacks. We found a good range of food in here at all meal times and enjoyed every meal we had here. We especially enjoyed the afternoon tea, a much loved British favourite which served real clotted cream and sausage rolls. Although I'll go into more detail about the drinks later, there was wine and beer available on tap in here, as well as hot and cold drinks. At dinner time, the buffet was split into 2. One side was a different theme each night, and the other side an international buffet. Buffets can often be hectic with not much selection, but as far as buffets go, we had a really pleasant experience and this was one of our favourite buffets. Just to add that they do have designated stations for guests with dietary requirements. Now on to the chargeable restaurants, and first of all I'm going to talk about Umi Sushi, which we booked a reservation for in advance before the cruise, and this cost $16.95 per person. You can expect to find both traditional sushi and non-fish sushi options, dim sum and other cooked items. The sushi dishes are cooked at the live cooking station, which is great if you're sat in one of these seats. We had the duck spring rolls to start, which were delicious, and I could have honestly just eaten these. For mains we had sushi rolls, and off of this list you could pick and choose as long as it totaled 10 rolls. I had 5 of the East meets West and 5 of the Pit, and Mark had a mixture of 5 different types. It was the first time I'd eaten sushi, and unfortunately I didn't like it, but Mark loves sushi and said it's the best that he's ever had. The service in here was unfortunately very slow, however they were incredibly understaffed. There was just one man who was seating people, taking orders, clearing tables, bringing out the food for all of the tables. We were seated at 8 PM and our starters didn't arrive until 9:15 and the mains arrived roughly 20 minutes after that. We are very reasonable people and could see how stressed the server was, and we weren't in a rush to be anywhere, so we just sat and chatted and drank while we waited. Although there was one point where I was waiting a very long time for a drink, so I decided to go and walk to the bar just around the corner and get one from there instead. I personally wouldn't come back to Umi Sushi again, purely because I've discovered I don't like sushi, but as someone who does enjoy it, Mark said he would return. Next we're going to talk about the Surf and Turf Steakhouse, which again we booked before the cruise, and it cost $34.95 per person. As you might have guessed, you can find steak and seafood in here, along with other mains including lamb, chicken, lots of choices for side dishes, and there were also vegan, vegetarian and gluten-free options as there are in every dining venue. Included was a starter, main and dessert, and if you want the sharing board but for one person, they do accommodate this, because this is what Mark had. This was my favourite specialty restaurant that we ate at, as the food was brought out in good time, the staff was so friendly and the steak was cooked perfectly. The only criticism that I would have is about where we sat. We were sat on our own to the side next to the wall, with everyone walking past us to either enter and exit both the steakhouse and Corral as they are joined together. I would be happy to eat here again, however I would probably ask in advance to be seated somewhere a little bit more quiet. The next chargeable restaurant is Corral, which offers a Pan-Asian selection of curries and noodle dishes. This costs $29.95 per person, and as I previously mentioned, you have to walk through the steakhouse to get into here. The menu here changes between 2 options, but we didn't know which one we would get when we booked in advance before the cruise. The food here to me was just okay. It wasn't the best Asian food that I've eaten on a cruise ship. People that love P&O will know Sindhu very well, and if I compare it to that, then Sindhu rates a lot higher than Corral. Unfortunately, the service in here was a bit disappointing as well. Our main waiter, when he came over to us to ask anything such as if we wanted more drinks or if everything's okay, he only looked to and spoke to Mark and acted as if I kind of wasn't there. When both of our glasses were empty, he asked Mark if he wanted another drink, and that was it, and he walked off. It didn't really feel like a special experience that you would hope for when you come to a specialty restaurant, and obviously you're paying extra for it, but that may have just been down to the certain waiter that was serving us. So on that note, I probably would come back here again. Hopefully it would be better service, but I'm not going to base the whole experience based off one server. And the last extra cost dining venue is the Dining Club. This is classed as the fine dining restaurant on board Marella Explorer, where you can expect to find dishes such as scallops with champagne butter, caviar, fillet of beef and much more, as you can see from these menus, making it the go-to place for a special evening. The Dining Club also hosts the great musical afternoon tea, which takes place weekly and sells out incredibly quickly, so make sure you secure your spot early as we missed out. This event brings the West End to Marella Cruises with dishes inspired by famous musicals, and the room is decorated with show posters and memorabilia. And there's also a little surprise in store for you, but I'm not going to ruin that. In the Dining Club, you'll also be able to find the food and wine pairing dinner, which only takes place on Dress to Impress night. I'm gutted that we weren't able to visit here, however it's definitely on my list for next time. A little extra mention in this section is the ice cream on board, which is called Scoops. This can be found on the pool deck and is an extra charge. So that wraps up this first section on the food, and I much preferred the food all included in the cruise fare. If we came back on board, then I would definitely like to try the dining club. However, I may think about booking the other specialty dining restaurants, but definitely not Umi Sushi, as I obviously don't like sushi. So these three topics, I'm going to group them together as some of them cross over each other. But in a nutshell, there is so much to do on board Marella Explorer. There are plenty of activities, things to do, places to go and sit, relax or have a drink. It's pretty much impossible to be bored. You can find all of the daily activities on board in your cruise news, which is delivered to your cabin every day. First is the lounge, which is quiet with comfy seating during the day, and in the evening you can listen to some great live music. Next is the Indigo Bar, which was probably my favourite. The decor is absolutely beautiful and has great views from the front of the ship. Like the lounge, it is a quiet, chilled area during the day, and by night you'll find the silent discos and late night discos here, where you can try a cocktail that you can't find anywhere else on the ship, as it has its own around the world themed menu. The Thai Punch was my favourite and I definitely recommend it. Next to the Indigo Bar you can also find a small casino with a few tables and slot machines. A popular venue and was always too busy for us to go in was the Squid and Anchor. This is the pub on board Marella Explorer, which hosts the quizzes, bingo, more live entertainment, and has a great selection of premium gin and whiskies which are chargeable. Other bars to mention are 53, which, as you may tell from the name, is located next to the main dining room, latitude 53, and is a great place to wait with a drink if you've been given a pager to wait for dinner. Aperitif is located outside of the specialty dining venues, and you can find everything here from Prosecco and spirits to cocktails. Bar at the Mediterranean is an indoor and outdoor space located between the two restaurants, with plenty of seating and has a Mediterranean-inspired menu. Lastly, there are two bars around the pool area. The Shack is located above Snack Shack, and the pool bar is in the opposite diagonal corner to the Snack Shack. If you fancy something with less alcohol, then you can head to the coffee pool. This coffee shop is where you can find all of your hot beverages and some sweet treats, some of which are an extra charge, and I'll talk about this in the drink section. No ship is complete without a theatre, and on board Marella Explorer it is called the Broadway Show Lounge. This theatre spans across 2 decks, has a capacity for 1,000 guests, and hosts 2 shows a night. These shows are mostly West End style performances with the Marella Explorer showcast and the occasional tribute act. As you enter the venue, there are tables set up with a variety of drinks to help yourself to, and if you didn't know, Marella is an all-inclusive cruise line. But like I've said already, I'll come back and talk about the drinks shortly. Now please don't hate me for this, but in my opinion, this was probably the worst theatre style shows that I've seen on board a cruise. If you've watched my daily vlogs on this cruise, then you'd have seen that the mouth singers are unfortunately not that great, and the choreography for the dancers was honestly a little bit bland. I danced from the age of 3 to 15, so I know a little bit about stage performance, and honestly I think my local dance school probably would have topped these shows. Some other venues that you need to know about are the Gamer Zone, which is located at the top of the atrium on deck 8, which is also next to the attic, which is the library. At the aft of deck 12 on the family deck you can find the mini golf and sports court. More for kids is the M Club, which is the kids club for 3 to 11-year-olds where they have their own kids pool. For the older ones there is the Hideout, which has games consoles, air hockey, comfy seating and an outside area with hammocks. If you fancy watching a movie, there are 2 places where you can do this. The first being the big screen around the pool area, and there is actually a cinema on board too. The films and times can be found in your cruise news. If all of that is a bit too much, a bit too hectic, and you just want to relax, then there is a spa on board. The spa does come at an extra cost, however the prices are incredibly reasonable. There is so much to see in the spa with different steam rooms, relaxation rooms, treatment rooms. You could spend hours in here. A top tip is that it's always good to check out the spa on embarkation day, as this is where they can give you some really good deals. They also offer week access packages to the spa, which you don't want to discover at the end of your cruise. There is also a gym which is free to use. Lastly, I want to talk about the shops, and there are so many shops, whether you want bags, jewellery, Marella goodies, those things you've forgotten last minute like sun cream, or your dicky bow for dress to impress night. There is something for everyone. Okay, so now I'm finally going to talk about the drinks package after mentioning it so many times. And as I said before, Marella is an all-inclusive cruise line, which means you get a basic drinks package included in your cruise fare. On this drinks menu here, you can see that the white sections are what is included in your cruise fare, and the ones in blue are part of the premium all-inclusive, which is what we did, and paid £80 per person for the week at time of booking. If you're on the standard package, then the price next to the drinks in the premium section is the surcharge you will pay if you order one of these drinks. With the premium package, you will get the drinks included on the specialty menus, such as this gin and whiskey one, which is located in the Squid and Anchor, or the World Scene cocktails in Indigo. You cannot have just one person in the cabin on the premium drinks package, it will need to be everyone. I don't know how it works for kids, as I don't have them, but I'm just explaining it how it works for adults. For us paying £80 for the week across 7 days, it worked out to be £11.43 per day. Let's say each of these specialty drinks cost an average of £3.90 each. You would need to drink 3 of them a day to make it worth your money. The canned drinks, however, are £1.50, so you would need to drink at least 8 a day for it to be worth it. The specialty drinks at the coffee port range between £1.25 and £2.35, so I'll let you do the maths on that one. Also included in the premium package, you get a large bottle of water delivered to your cabin every day, but we didn't for some reason, but I don't know why. So it's definitely something to think about and work out if it's worth for you. For us, it cost a similar amount for if we didn't pay for the premium package, so if it comes to booking another Marella cruise, then I think we would just decide at the time if we want to or not. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the whole process right before the cruise. I think we booked the cruise 3 weeks before the sail date, and honestly we expected all of the excursions to be completely sold out. However, when we accessed the cruise control dashboard where you can find all of this information, there was no access to it whatsoever. A few days later we were finally able to see the excursions and restaurants, but we couldn't pay for the excursions. We booked the meals 2 days after we booked the cruise, but we could only book the excursions 1 week and 2 days before we sailed, which was actually quite stressful as someone who loves to plan things. As I said earlier, I've done a vlog for each of the ports that we've visited, and within those vlogs I've also included all of the excursions that were available for us, so if you want to see those options then make sure you check those out afterwards. Now onto the Wi-Fi. You can connect to the ship's basic Wi-Fi for free, however this doesn't give you access to things like social media, messaging or streaming services. It just allows you to access the system on board, which is not an app but a web page called Navigate, and I'll post a video here to show you how it works and the type of thing you can find on there. It's really helpful if you want to see your onboard account, access your bookings for restaurants and excursions, and find port information with local maps. You can do other things like give feedback here for specific crew members, find information about the muster drill, and also pay for the Wi-Fi to access social media, messaging and streaming. Now, I personally think the Wi-Fi on board is incredibly expensive, and instead of it being charged per day or week like you would see on other cruise ships, it's actually charged by data bundles, which you can see the prices of here. We did buy the Get Social one at one point and the Wi-Fi did work well when connected, but we often had to keep disconnecting and connecting again. Most of the time we just accessed the internet while we were in port, as it is included in our mobile data bundle. However, it wasn't included in Montenegro. Then if that's something that concerns you, make sure you check that out before you go. It's obviously up to you to decide if you need Wi-Fi or not, but I do think that the prices are ridiculous compared to most other cruise lines. Now in this section I'm going to give my opinion on what I think of Marella Cruises as a company themselves and how they compare to other cruise lines that I have cruised with. So I have previously cruised with Celebrity, P&O, Ambassador and Cruise and Maritime Voyages, or CMV, however they don't exist anymore, but those are the companies that I will be comparing Marella to. I would say that Marella is a little bit of a mashup between Celebrity and P&O, but for good reasons. As this ship was an old Celebrity ship, it really felt a lot like Celebrity Constellation that I was on in August last year. The snack shack looked a lot like the Mars Grill. The Indigo bar looked a lot like the Sky Lounge. I think in terms of it feeling like P&O, maybe because it's like a package holiday with the flights and transfers being included, I much prefer this as it's a lot less to think about. And it also works out a lot cheaper as you don't have to book all these things separately. Also because it's a package holiday, if your flight is delayed then the ship will wait for you. This did actually happen for our cruise. Obviously there's some exceptions. If it's really delayed or completely cancelled, you know, there are a few things that may stop this, but 9 times out of 10 the ship will wait for you. If you were to book these things separately and your flight was delayed, then unfortunately the ship wouldn't wait for you. Also I think it felt similar to P&O and probably Ambassador too, is because these 3 companies, their main target audience is us Brits. I have seen people comment that Marella Cruises are like Butlins at sea. Not my words at all, and I don't agree with this because We did not see or experience any bad behaviour, and it was all very relaxed and friendly actually. I was really impressed by my first cruise with Marella and would definitely book another one with them. I do think they are a little bit on the pricey side, but you do need to consider that your flights, transfers, drinks, everything is included. You could book your Marella cruise, visit the ports independently, you don't need to go and eat at specialty restaurants, you don't need to pay for the premium drinks package. You can do absolutely everything included in that cruise fee. Really, you don't need to pay a single penny after you've paid for your cruise. Another point that made it feel like a P&O cruise was that the tips were included. Some other cruise lines will charge you per cabin or per day for tips. However, you don't need to pay that extra cost with Marella. Obviously, if you'd like to individually tip crew extra, then you're more than welcome to, and I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated. So I put out a little questions box on my Instagram story, so I'm going to read some of those now. Any essentials to bring on the cruise? First time cruiser doing this exact cruise next year. Okay, so I'm going to give my top 5 essentials that I bring on every single cruise. The first being hook magnets. Now, the ceilings and walls are metal, so you can use them for so many things. I use them for things like hooking extra bags on, or putting them as a magnet to stick our excursions ticket to the wall, or our daily cruise news. The possibilities are endless. Second is a clear luggage tag holder. You can just have it as paper and sellotape it together or staple it, but then you've got to think about carrying sellotape around or a stapler, and it doesn't last very well in transit if it's just a piece of paper. It's got more of a chance of going to the right place if it's in a clear luggage holder. And also it won't get ruined if it gets wet. You can get these off Amazon as well, and I'll put a link in the description below. I don't get any money for this, it's just the links of what I use. Third is a mini first aid kit, as if you need some small medical items on board in the middle of the sea, then it can cost you extra. The ship does provide painkillers and seasickness tablets, however, it's just much easier if you have these yourself. Fourth is plug adapters, a bit like this one here, that you can use all around the world in different types of plug sockets, USBs included, and also normal plugs. Before I go on a cruise, I always look at YouTube videos of the cabin that I'm staying in, so I know that I'm bringing the right one. Obviously, if you've got one like this, then it doesn't really matter because you're going to have a plug socket for any type of socket. And number 5 is crease release. You can't bring an iron on board and there is no laundrette. So if you want to pay a lot of money for ironing or laundry, then this is going to be your best friend. All you have to do is lightly spray your clothing with the crease release and just gently brush it down, smooth it out, and it's not perfect, but it's better than being all creased and crumpled up. You can find these online on Amazon, but also in shops like Savers, B&M, you know, those fun shops. Best and worst thing about the experience. There are so many good things about this cruise. There were so many amazing parts of this trip, like sitting on the hammock on the balcony, watching the beautiful sailings, or all of the food we ate. I think the highlight of this trip was the pools. Everything that we did was so much fun, and I would recommend everything that we did. In my opinion, they are some of the most beautiful ports in Europe, and I would go back to all of them again, and I don't think I've ever said that about a cruise itinerary. The worst thing is quite tricky to pick. There wasn't any really bad experiences. Obviously there was a little hiccup in Corallar with the service, but apart from that, I would say the worst thing is being woken up on the day of disembarkation. So with disembarkation, you have to put your suitcase out the night before, which on other cruises that I've been on, it's either 10 PM or midnight. However, this one was 2 AM, so after that is when they wheeled all the suitcases through the corridor. Now, the storage room was not directly opposite us, but just a few doors down and opposite. It was outside of our room that they were lifting all the suitcase handles up and down and clicking them and wheeling them really loudly and having discussions like pretty much right outside our room, which isn't ideal at 4 o'clock in the morning when you're about to have a travel home. I did give a little bit of feedback in the morning at reception, but the lady didn't seem to really care. She just kind of said, okay, thanks, and that was that. And I did put in a feedback form online, but I haven't heard anything, so I don't know if that will make a difference. But yeah, that was probably really the only bad thing of the cruise. What port or excursion was your favourite? This is such a hard question because they were so different. I think I'm gonna have to say Dubrovnik because there was so much to see there and we didn't actually get to see all of what we wanted to. We obviously did the city walls and the cable car, which was absolutely amazing. The views were spectacular. It was actually a really nice trip just going up in the cable car, and the meal that we had at the top, it was one of those moments that we are going to remember for the rest of our lives. It was just, that really was a special moment. Also in Dubrovnik, I really love how the orange roofs contrast against the blue skies and the different colours of the sea. It's just so picturesque. It is just a stunning place. What was the dress code like? The dress code throughout the ship was pretty casual, and again, comparing to other cruise lines, this was probably the most casual dress code that I've ever seen. On Dress to Impress night, there wasn't any glitz and glam, not any dressing up, no full length gowns with sequins, there wasn't any of that. It was just, you know, normal dresses for women and just a collared shirt with jeans or trousers for men with smart shoes. But apart from the Dress to Impress night, it was pretty casual, you know, t-shirts, jeans. You can't wear swimwear or flip-flops or that kind of thing in the evening. Some restaurants will have their own separate dress code, which you can see online. There are also sometimes some theme nights, however we didn't have any of those, unfortunately. I do personally love getting a bit dressed up on a cruise, as I think you don't really do it too well, unless you go on a lot of cruises. You don't really do it too often, but I understand that for some people it can be really uncomfortable and a little bit stuffy, but on this cruise it was very much casual. Would you recommend a Marella cruise? If it's not obvious already, yes. 100% yes is my answer. I would definitely book one again, so I would definitely recommend one. I've had people say to me that before they hadn't really thought about Marella Cruise, but since watching my vlogs they now really would love to, so I hope it shows how much I've enjoyed it in my cruise series. And finally, some of my ship tips. In each stairwell, the carpets are decorated in either red, green or blue to show your location on the ship. Blue is forward or the front of the ship, red is for midship, and green is for the aft or the back of the ship. Next, I would say take a picture of your cruise news. It saves you from carrying it around with you, and you won't be able to access the Navigate webpage when you're off the ship. Lastly, if you sail into a certain port like Kotor, which is known for the beautiful sailing, then wake up 2 hours before the time that you were due to dock. I would recommend to stand somewhere on the upper decks. I wish I'd done this, but I just watched it from the balcony. There is an adults only area called the veranda, which is at the front of the ship and has unobstructed views and would have been the perfect place to watch a sailing like this. I'm a little bit gutted that I only thought about this once I come off the cruise. If you've got any of your own tips or cruise essentials, then I would love to hear them and put them in the comments below. So that wraps up my Marella review. I hope it's given you some information that maybe you were looking for, or I hope you just enjoyed it and maybe it's inspired you to go on Marella Explorer. If there's still something that you'd like to know which I haven't covered, then leave a comment below and I will get back to you as soon as possible and help as much as I can. Thank you so much for watching. If you could please give this video a thumbs up and also hit the subscribe button. I've got so much more content coming this year. I'm soon to be visiting Walt Disney World in Florida, and then I'll be heading on my first ever Cunard cruise on Queen Anne, visiting 2 new ports. And then I'll be going on my second ambassador cruise on Ambience, which is the sister ship to Ambition that I was on last year. So make sure you stick around for all that. You can also head over to my Instagram, which I'll pop a link to in the description below for much more content. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye.